Hello, everyone. So, I am Namita on behalf of Eisenbridge and Discuss Agile community. I would like to welcome you all for today's webinar, which is on hybrid approach to project management. And here we have Manish with us, who is a well experienced PMP trainer, and he's going to share his insights and whatever you have questions about new PMP exams, so you can ask him. So, Manish, welcome you. And over to you. Can we start now?
Yeah, thanks, Namita. So, welcome all. Today's webinar is about hybrid project management, and it's, I would say, quite a hot topic in the project management world. Although it's not a new thing, it has been there for about a decade or so, but in not so popular than it was in last couple of years. And with the change in the PMP exam that we have now, there is also a lot of focus on the hybrid project management scenarios. So let's try to understand what is hybrid. What should you as a project manager need to know about hybrid? The skills that the project manager should have to be able to execute project with hybrid methodology. And then we'll also look into how the organization can adopt to the hybrid project management methodology, the whole journey. And we will conclude with some real life case studies on how a couple of organizations, they used the hybrid flavor of project management in a given situation. We have the passion of training project managers in PMP and other certification. I've been associated with Eisenbridge for quite some time, and I live in southern part of Sweden, and that picture is quite small, cozy town. You see here the difference between winter and summer. Summer are quite beautiful, winter of course not, but it has its own charm. Right? Before I start any webinar, I try to collect as much data as possible around the webinar topic. Unfortunately, there is not so much available around the hybrid project management and the statistics around the success. The graph, the pie chart here shows the different organizations and different project methodologies that they have been using. This is coming from PMI survey. You see here predictive 47 and then hybrid 23. So hybrid agile almost matching. If you look at the chart on the right hand side, that's from the Girls Guide to PM, you'll see there is more wider usage of hybrid as compared to the PMI survey that was done into 2014 kind of. And the Girls Guide to PM survey is quite recent, 2020. So the footprint of hybrid has increased. If you look at another chart, which is again from PMI, you can see that the organization who, who are agile, who are nimble, can adopt to hybrid much easily, rather than the organization who are having low agility, which means that organizations are mostly giant organizations who cannot maneuver their course very fast, right? But again here, this is one of the recent surveys from PMI where it says that, okay, Poonam, someone on the WhatsApp group is asking for the webinar Zoom link, so please help check. It is one of the training groups. Okay, so then let's go to the topics for today. So what we will discuss at very high level on evaluation of the evolution of the project management methodology, the whole spectrum, the two extremes that we have, waterfall agile. Then we'll talk about what is hybrid actually, how the organization should adopt to hybrid, and then hybrid in practice. And at the end, we will cover about the importance of understanding hybrid from the project management certification perspective. Right? So evaluation of project management. So project management in some form has been with us for almost thousands of years, right? But the most structured way of project management, and when I say structured, that's the traditional waterfall or sequential, predictive, whatever terminology, that was more prevalent in 20th century after the World War, when there was a need to start a lot of projects, some mega projects. And that, that's the period where we have this Gantt chart and the 5 knowledge areas and all this stuff that came into practice in the 20th century. And a lot of people say, agile is dinosaur, waterfall is dinosaur, and it's not the in thing, not the cool thing. That's not true. I mean, if you look at the kind of different projects that we have done using waterfall, it's amazing. I mean, we landed on moon, we came back, it was all waterfall, there was no agile. You have this Concorde, it's just one of the example. Of course, there are many other aircrafts than this famous Eiffel Tower. So we did a lot of good projects using waterfall. So waterfall is not really a junk methodology as such, but we all know that it was a bit slow. It was perceived to be a lot of red tape, a lot of approvals, a lot of bureaucracy, etc., etc. And the world has changed. The world has changed. The speed of change is tremendous. We have a disruptive world today. We call it as a VUCA time, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous. And for that kind of a world, waterfall seem to be not so much of a best fit. So then we have Agile, where the speed is something which is definitely a positive of Agile. We have a more engaged customer, although it was initially designed for only IT software development. It is now being widely used across different industry. And of course, one of the, I would say one of the byproduct of Agile was cost. We could save cost both from failing fast. So a lot of projects which we would have spent enormous amount of resources and then realized that the project would not succeed in waterfall kind of a methodology. With Agile, you could sense that and you could probably kill the project. And the sunk cost is much less. And also because of time to market, the speed, we could get more revenue by delivering the products earlier than market. However, Agile is also not perfect fit for all the situation, and we will talk about later in detail about why. So we now have hybrid, where it gives you a lot of flexibility. Having said that, Agile is not flexible, that's not true, but Agile also has sort of a forced methodology concept. We'll talk about it. And fit for purpose, choice to the PM to choose the right methodology. So hybrid has its own positive points, and it's quite popular today. What will be in future after hybrid, we do not know. But as of today, I think most of the organizations are able to understand the value of hybrid and are able to use or adopt to a hybrid methodology much more than they were, I would say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years back, right? So, Namita, can we go for poll number 1?
Yeah, sure. I'm just putting poll. Here is the poll. Yes. So the poll 1. Which PM methodology used in our organization? Can you guys poll for it? So, yes.
Good. So it's quite even distribution between hybrid and waterfall, 23%, and then followed by Agile about 19%. All of the above is also 19%, and so it's more or less even between all the choices. But I'm a bit positively surprised at hybrid topping the list along with waterfall, 23%. Thanks. Okay, so Let's look at a very high level difference. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, and this definitely is not the focus area of our webinar, but I still wanted to give sort of a teaser here on various parameters and how the traditional project management, which is the waterfall, and agile project management. Now, both the methodology, they have their pros and cons. Neither of them is perfect. But at the same time, it's sort of creating a divided world where the ambassadors of traditional waterfall who have done their project in traditional approach throughout their life, whereas the agile project ambassadors who feel agile is more nimble, fast, etc., etc. It's creating a divided world. It's more like the battle book here, where the Zooks and the Yuks, one of the group who used to apply butter on the top of the bread and the other one at the bottom of the bread, and they both felt that that's the right way. This methodology, they have their positives, they have their negatives, but they are both at the extreme end of the spectrum. So if there are situations where neither of them really fit the bill, what do we do? So let's look at this now. Yeah. So waterfall, on one end, you have tighter controls, it's sequential, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of planning, a lot of reporting, a lot of documentation. Agile, on the other hand, is more all about speed. It's about lean planning. Planning is there, but lean planning, no heavy reporting. A lot of reporting that is done through pull, smaller teams. Number of team members in one team. Documentation, a very less documentation, not really big focus on documentation, and much frequent deliveries. Right? Now, there is a huge area in between. The scale 0 to 10 is just indicative. It doesn't really mean these numbers do not really have any measure, but it's just an indicator. Now, everything in between, let's look at the scenario, right? Where you have, for example, a large team, say 30-member team, and you cannot really split the team into 8 or 9-member group, which is the best practice in Agile, right? Where there is a need for heavy planning, could be because of regulatory, could be because then you need a formal change control board. Again, not really an agile thing, but the organization wants to have it because of the audit purpose or compliance purpose, where you need a heavy reporting and more frequent reporting to the authorities, but you want to use Scrum or you want to use Agile. Where you want the product backlog, every time the product backlog is being changed, you want to have a traceability, just like we have the requirement traceability metrics in predictive lifecycle. You want to have a similar audit trail. Now, Agile doesn't really encourage that, but what if you want to have it, right? Or the organization has low risk appetite, so it does not want to every time fail fast, which means that some amount of detailed planning has to be done before initiating the execution cycle. Now, in all these situations where one of the methodology doesn't really fit the need, the context, what should we choose? And that's where the hybrid comes to rescue. I forgot to tell this at the start of this webinar. So there is hybrid agile concept where it is also sort of an agile, and that is not really a hybrid. Hybrid agile is a modified form of agile, which also kind of enforces a lot of things, and that is not the spirit of hybrid. What actually is hybrid? So hybrid is not really defined methodology, just like you have Scrum or XP or Kanban or waterfall rolling, web planning, etc. It's more of a mindset. It's more of philosophy, right? Now, it might sound a bit confusing right now, but when we go to the subsequent slides, probably would be more clear. The whole idea of hybrid methodology is to appreciate the fact that every single project is unique, and that also is the definition in the PMI. Right? It's a temporary endeavor and has a start and finish date, and it's unique in its sense. Uh, so, if every project is unique, why should we restrict only 2 or 3 or 4, or within Agile, you have like 4 or 5 methodologies? Right? Why restrict the project manager to choose only one of them? And that also throughout the project lifecycle, which is also kind of, tying project managers and kind of forcing a methodology. So Agile is about the pragmatic mix of predictive and agile. As you see the picture on the right hand side, top right hand side, you have an option of waterfall and agile, but at the same time you have a project scenario, a context. Now, if I have to explain, right, the background picture that you see, the Lego blocks, you can think about doing projects in hybrid as you're building a structure using Lego blocks. Now, how those blocks are put together can be different all the time. But one thing is for sure, that every time you add a piece, it has to make sense. It has to be adding value to the end deliverable. So, and every piece that you add is best fit for that scenario. So you need to, and when I say you, it's the project manager. They have to take a judgment on which methodology is best fit for which phase of the project. And the last bullet is very important, provides the required choice to the PMs within the boundaries and framework. Now, it's important to kind of emphasize on within the boundaries and framework. What I mean to say here is that there has to be some method to the madness. You cannot give entire free hand to all the projects, then it becomes difficult to really gel them together if they have interdependencies. A simple example, layman example, if I ask my son to clean his room, right, and make it tidy, I have to set some ground rules. He cannot just trash any valuable thing or anything that he feels like he doesn't need it, but it's still needed, right? So I have to set some boundaries, some framework within which he is free to do what he wants. Another thing, for example, if I want someone to clean and tidy my garden and make my grass really green, I can give all the freedom to the person who is doing it, but he cannot just use a green paint and paint my grass and say now it's green. Right? So there are boundaries, there are frameworks, there are choices that the PM is given. You can refer to as a toolkit or a framework or whatever. Within that, PM is authorized, PM is trusted to make a choice on which methodology is good for his or her project. So again, a hybrid doesn't have a well-defined structure like you'll have Scrum and where you have certain terms around the ceremonies and a product backlog and a product manager or roles or ceremonies, etc. It's about choosing between the hybrid and agile, where the context of the project matters. Now, if I have to give another perspective here, it's sort of a pendulum. Waterfall and agile, they are two different extremes. Now, if you look, your project can be anywhere in between. If you feel that there's a lot of planning needed, a lot of structure needed, you can be very close to waterfall and then choose certain pockets of agile within the project. If you feel that you need a lot of agility, the requirements are changing, etc., etc., but there are certain elements of waterfall that you still feel are relevant for your project, then your project pendulum will be more towards the agile. It's all about assessing the current need, assessing what is best for the project, and that's where the role of the project manager becomes so important, because it is the project manager who will have to take the judgment about the given situation and takes the decision on which methodology best suits for a given situation. Okay. Namita, poll 2, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another poll is, what do you think is the biggest challenge in your organization about adapting to hybrid?
Okay, there's a bit of a spellow type for there. Lack of management buy-in, not buy-in. So it's about management approving the hybrid. Okay, not many people have. Okay, yeah, good. So the biggest reason is no compelling reason to use hybrid. And then followed by organization is not aware of what hybrid is. So it's kind of sort of a contradicting to the earlier poll where a lot of you said we're using hybrid in the organization, but fair enough. So I think the lowest score is PMO doesn't have the right competence, which is actually good that PMO has the competence. Good. So let's go back to our when to choose what methodology, there are a lot of factors that will influence. And if you look at the various factors, there are too many, and this is also sort of inspired from discipline agile and other areas. So the key factors that I would like to highlight for this is first your organization culture and size. So startup size organizations, smaller organizations, they are much faster in adapting to different methodologies. Where you have a big organization, a lot of approver interdependency between other projects, it becomes a bit of a challenge. And again, another important one is your resources. So in order to have hybrid project management methodology, not just the project manager, but the resources also should be aware of what hybrid is. More importantly, they should have worked in waterfall and agile and should appreciate and understand the pros and cons, the positives and negatives of waterfall and agile. Because as I mentioned earlier, if you are kind of biased, if you're married to a particular life cycle, particular methodology, then it will be very difficult for you to openly embrace hybrid. Again, the industry where you are operating, a lot of industry, they need structure, they need a lot of reporting, and at the same time, if you remember the spectrum slide where there are a lot of reporting needs or compliance need, etc., etc. But at the same time, we want faster time to market. Then hybrid is the way to go. So this also means that the project manager should be aware of these factors. They should be having that big picture in mind, where based on the different factors that are influencing your project at a given point of time, you should have the competence of choosing the right methodology. So there's a lot of focus on the project management competence because you cannot go every time to the PMO and ask for decision. PMO can support you, sponsors can support you, but at your level, as a project manager, you should know what is the best course for your project. Now, if you have to do a hybrid adoption, now this is at organization level, so but it in some diluted form also applies to the projects/program. So the first thing is, of course, the gap assessment. And when I say gap assessment, you really need to ask some difficult questions to yourself, to your organization on, are we open to having hybrid? Do we have enough competence within the organization who understands what is hybrid? Does the project manager has the right level of authority and flexibility to choose what is best for the project? Right? Is PMO willing to provide the help? A lot of organizations, they are married to a certain project management methodology. They feel that is the best and are not willing to try out new options. And the risk appetite, because when you do hybrid methodology, the success cannot be seen in day one or even in few months. It takes time to get the return on investment. So all those tough questions, when you ask yourself and the right stakeholders, you are in a position to know what is the gap. Once you know the gap, then you have to strategize. Now, when you do the strategy, identifying early movers is one of the most critical things. You have to choose the right project which could be a best fit for hybrid, where you can showcase the success much earlier. Do not do a big bang, which means do not transition to hybrid big bang. Do it in smaller steps. You need to provide the right set of training, not just for the project manager, not just for the team members, but also with different stakeholders on what it means to be executing project in hybrid methodology. And then, of course, you need to have a good change communication management function, both change management and communication management. Then you actually, based on the early movers that are being identified, you hit the road, you pick the hybrid methodology, do it for your project, showcase the success story, learn from it, reflect, train more team, and then you scale. Now, this whole thing can also be looked upon into plan, do, check, act. The act part is sharpen the saw, where you continuously improve based on the experience that you gather from various projects which have been done in hybrid. Few things, start small, always ensure that the management buy-in is there. Otherwise, you will hit roadblocks, and do not enforce hybrid. So as I said, every methodology is relevant to a given situation. If you feel that waterfall makes the case or agile makes the case, do not force hybrid into it. So, and when you do hybrid project management, the return will not be immediate. So the organization should be aware of it. And then, as I said, institutionalize the same with strong change management and strong communication management. Namita, poll 3, please.
So, and the poll is, which of the following is the most critical skills the project manager should have to be able to adapt to project methodology? So, options are there. So,
Okay, good. So decision-making skills is the popular choice here, 38%, and followed by communication and leadership, 19%. Business acumen, 15%. Okay, so it's good. I think all the participants are thinking in the similar lines as I do. Let's do this, and then we go back to the other side. So judgment, or the ability to take decisions based on informed data, that is by far the biggest or the most important skill that the project manager should have when he or she is doing hybrid. The reason is, when you do hybrid project, you don't tie yourself or marry yourself. So if the situation changes during the project where you feel now I need to have more agile in my project than what for, or the other way around, that decision has to be taken by the project manager, and the project manager should have the right judgment around assessing a given situation. Business acumen is definitely needed, because you need to have the big picture. You need to know what is expected from the business. At the same time, you also need to know, if you make a certain change in your methodology, will it have an impact on the business? Agnostic, very critical. You as a project manager and the team that you have shouldn't have any bias towards any of the uh, project management methodology. Even within Agile, you don't need to say, yeah, I think Kanban is the best, or Scrum is the best, or Extreme Programming is the best. No methodology is the best fit for all the projects, right? So the judgment part is the right-hand box, the ability to recognize when to use the elements of one methodology or other is a skill that will come over time, but what is needed is the knowledge of both waterfall and agile. So that is more of a hard skills, knowledge of agile and waterfall, and then the judgment is a soft skill, and that comes over the time. Okay, this is the statement which I really like, is that the PM of the future should be able to do the fusion of the different methodology. One of the predictions for the project management field for the coming decade is that the methodology will lose the label. So people would not really care whether you're following Agile or Scrum or whatever. What they care is your project able to deliver the business value that it was initiated for. Then go back to the benefits of hybrid. So at the project management level, as a project manager, you are not tied to a certain methodology. You are given the choice. You are trusted with the decision making on which methodology fits the best. And that then helps you foster the innovative mindset, because you know that you have the possibility to choose what is best for the project. And then you have that thought process where you kind of don't tie yourself, you can think out of the box, and also your team members know that this project allows you to choose the best path. For business, they don't care about which methodology. Um, they should be focusing and they should be getting more out of every project, because the project is given the flexibility and the freedom to deliver what it has been asked to. And complex project then can be delivered with much higher chance, because we are more and more into knowledge-based, service area-based projects, and those projects are complex. And one methodology will not really help us succeed all the time. Okay, at the organization level, it is more or less what the combination of business and project management. The return on investment is much higher because the success rate increases. The organization speed in terms of ability to execute different variety of project also increases. So there are benefits of hybrid, but there are also pitfalls. We'll look into that. So again, as I said, this webinar focuses on hybrid. We can have the same similar webinar talking about waterfall, talking about agile, but our focus today is hybrid. And these are the advantages, a lot of more advantage, but this again is not a perfect methodology either. Okay, let me talk poll 4.
Yeah, just a second.
I think you did poll 4 before, so I think probably. So while let me try pulling out the poll.
So okay, you want me to?
No, this is not the one. Remove it. Yeah, just the end polling. So you missed out one poll, I think. Yes, Mariam, I know it's higher, so it's a typo on that slide. Anyway, I think
Maybe.
all 3 you missed out.
Maybe. Just a second. Let me just. Yes. There is some. Let me check.
Okay, Murthy, we will take the questions at the end, so it's fine. Keep them coming. So you missed the poll 3, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
You can put it now. That's fine.
Yeah, let me do. Yeah, I'll give me a second. I'll put that.
Yeah.
We can continue till that. I'll put that.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have, as I told you before, we have hybrid in real world, hybrid in practice. And there are two case studies which I have pulled out from PMI. Again, one of them is quite old. The second one is 2013. So this is, as I said, not new concept. Agile itself is also just structured way of Agile. The Agile Manifesto is not old than 2 decades. 2001 February was when we had the Agile Manifesto. So these are quite new. We are learning. Everyone in the industry is learning. So in this case, in this organization called as Caterpillar, they did predictive, agile, and hybrid all together because of the situation that they had in the organization. So if you see here, the new project's inherent fluidity demanded more, so teams began using agile. Unfortunately, agile by itself wasn't the answer. Okay, so their organization had a global program management function, and they started to a journey to create a loose hybrid services where they had fused agile and predictive. But if you look at this case study here, in the second paragraph also, you'll see how the biases, the marriage or the perception about a certain methodology is so widespread within the industry and the organization that we're talking here. If you use agile, no longer deadlines. If you use agile, you don't need plan. Agile is only for IT. It's not applicable kind of situation. And every organization will find stakeholders with certain baggage that they carry around the impression or the perception that they have about a given methodology. And then it becomes important for you as a project manager also to educate people around you, the stakeholders around you, right? And the one which I have highlighted in blue, right? To sustain the model, we began actively recruiting team members with experience in all approaches. So you see how important it is for you to have exposure on different methodologies to understand and evaluate the situation and pick and choose the right methodology for the project. So again, you will get the slides and you can look into the details of it. But I just wanted to give a flavor where you have challenges, where agile doesn't fit. You also have perceptions around agile, and then it also means that more and more organizations are looking for competence across different methodologies, right? And then another case study here, where there was sort of not really a merger of two organizations, but they joined forces, right? And they had two different ways of working. So CoreLink here was a predictive shop, and BCB SNE, which is the Blue Shield of Nebraska, they were strictly agile, but they both of them to work together. So this is not just about hybrid, but it is about how do you marry the different methodology in the different functions. So you can always have within the organization a couple of projects which are run on predictive, couple of projects which are run on agile. Within agile, you can have project run on Scrum, project run on Kanban, etc. And when you have to release the whole product, where you need deliverables from predictive, you need deliverables from the different agile projects. How do you really ensure that you tie all those deliverables coming from different projects using different methodology? How do you tie them together? So you see here in CoreLink's predictive, they use CoreLink's predictive methodology to do heavy planning, to create the product backlog, and then push the product backlog into the BCB SNE, and then execute using Agile or Scrum, whatever. Wherever CoreLink could do deliverables independently, they use predictive. So this is another flavor of how do you do hybrid. Right? Before we summarize on this, I also wanted to highlight, this is a survey from PMI, where about close to 1,000 respondents and agile or hybrid implementation challenges. So as I said, no methodology is perfect. Every methodology will have it. So if you see what is the topmost challenge of moving to agile, command and culture organization, more of predictive, more of tighter control, more of bureaucracy, etc. Um, Using accepted project management practices was another, adapting to the PMO to agile environment. So PMO here was bottleneck. Um, Implementing agile process frameworks without modification tolerance. So this is the problem. If you want to do forcing a methodology, even if it's agile, it does not necessarily fit every single project. So the organization here, 33% here, they were not able to adapt. They were not able to tailor a given methodology. Right? Let's go back now to summarize. Both agile and waterfall, both of them are valid. So we shouldn't have any sort of a prejudice against waterfall that it's too old and not suited for today's world. No, a lot of elements of predictive are used in agile in a different way, but they are used. So prioritization of the requirement, it's in predictive. We use it in agile by backlog refinement. Risk management is in predictive. We use it in agile in a different way, where we have a bit of organic approach to it. A lot of other elements of predictive are used in agile in some form or the other. The one in bold, projects are funded to succeed. The business who pumps in money for the projects that are being initiated, they don't really care if you're using agile, Kanban, Scrum, waterfall, etc. What they care is, are you able to deliver value? And that value could be linked to a deliverable, which with all of the features and functionalities within a given time frame. But if it's time bound, the value could be that if your product has to be compliant to a certain regulation, then are you able to deliver the product which is 100% compliant, etc. And as I told you, the methodology itself will lose the sheen. They will not be relevant anymore in the future. What will be relevant is how best the value is delivered by the project. And that's the reason a project and the project manager should have a flexible approach. And as I said, within the framework. So within the framework is you set some high-level principles, and the project manager and the team should be able to change the project management methodology, should have that flexibility based on the need of the project. And again, don't force any methodology. Unfortunately, almost 90+% organization today have a preference, including the organization that I work in. They have a preference for scaled agile safe framework. They also have Spotify. So what we have done is we have sort of merged both this methodology, but by and large, we use the prescribed ways of working that is in safe. Again, as I said, it doesn't fit in all the projects, but unfortunately, that's how we have. And that is true for most of the organization. So it will take some time to come out of that bias and to come out of that old school thinking that all the projects should have uniform methodology within the organization, or the hybrid is not for us, or agile is the best if you have faster requirements change, etc., etc. The goal of hybrid, as you see bottom, is that we should be able to harvest the benefits of both predictive and agile life cycle, and not really get the downsides of those influenced into our project. So choose what is best, leverage on the strengths of both this methodology, and always remember that as a project manager, you will be awarded if you are delivering value. If you say, yeah, I have been 100% compliant to the methodology that was prescribed by the organization, was suggested by the organization, but if you fail delivering the value, no one is going to reward you. for the methodology that you've been following, right? So with that, we end our webinar. And before we leave, these are the contact details if you need any help. And also one of the quotes from Mark, who's the next president and CEO of PMI. I really like that quote, that as an organization, we do not need to always choose between speed and flexibility or stability and scale. It's all about balancing. It's all about balancing, and it's all about making the right choices. And if you make the right choice and you do not go into either end of the extremes, then you will be able to have a high performance in your organization. Right? So with that, we conclude, and let's look at we have some time, so I can look at the Q&A. So Murthy is saying I'm PMI ACP certified. Do I need to have PMI? Murthy, that's a very subjective statement for me to kind of give you a yes or no reply. But again, this is also not the right platform. PMI ACP and PMP, they both have different standing in the industry. So I would not be able to give you an answer, but you can write to support at EisenBridge, or you can join one of our clarification session, and we will be able to help you. And then let's look at the chat here. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, Jessica, audio is a bit muffled. Unfortunately, I don't know how to fix it. It's a bit of perennial problem here. But so Namita, last poll, and then we can conclude.
So we missed one poll. So you want me to share that poll too, or?
No, that's fine. Let's just the
Okay.
last. Yeah.
Okay, just a sec. So the last poll is so yes, would you guys refer this webinar recording to anyone to know about hybrid methodology? Guys, please start polling. Nobody's polling.
Yeah, saying I cannot see the poll.
Yeah. You're not able to see the poll.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now it's
now they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good. So before we end, one of the topic which was promised at the beginning in the agenda was the PMP exam and hybrid. So lot of questions which are coming in PMP exam now are in some way related to hybrid project management approach. So they would either tell you that you are doing a predictive life cycle, project methodology, and things are not working. You have to move to say agile or non-predictive. What are the considerations that you should do? First time adoption of agile in the organization. What are the do's and don'ts? There will also be some sort of questions where they will challenge your understanding of how best you can map the different roles of say Scrum. For example, product manager, more or less like project manager in traditional, maybe not. Business analyst, maybe. So the whole situations that will be in the project management professional exam, PMP exam, will be what should you do if you have to move from predictive to non-predictive? What are the things that you should take care of? If you are doing a hybrid project methodology, where some parts of your project are in predictive, they can also give you a situation and ask, is this case best suited for predictive or non-predictive project management approach? So you need to be aware of what are the factors that will influence your choice. We covered some of them here. You should be aware of trying to establish some sort of a relationship between the traditional or the waterfall approach and the agile. how risk management is done in waterfall and how you can do it in agile, how resource management is done, how can you do it in agile, how do you ensure that you are. So you need to have the big picture. You also need to have a good understanding of the pros and cons of each of the methodology and when to use hybrid. Okay, it's important for you to have that view to be able to answer the situational questions in the exam. Pallav, yes, the webinar slide will be shared. I will share it with Poonam and she can share it across with all the participants. Okay. Okay, so with that, thanks all for joining and taking time to understand the hybrid project management role. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can write to Poonam or support Bridge. We have the webinar and the slide. So thanks once again. Have a nice weekend and stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manish, for taking this insightful session, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. And definitely, we are going to share the recording of this webinar. Somehow, you guys missed any part of the webinar. So by Monday, you will get the recording of the same. And if any questions, as Manish says, you can write down your query on support@aizenbridge.com or can directly mail me. I will mention my email ID on the recording on that follow-up email. So you can write down on that. So thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you, Manish.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.